This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, welcome to What's New in DAC, the January 2022 edition. Let's jump right into the list and walk through things. All right, first item on the list, order category totals now support customer category description. And by that, we are referring to the totals that pop up in order entry, and also that are accessible from work with orders by using a T beside an order. And that would bring up a categorical breakdown, dollars, quantities, sales tax if applicable, and so forth. The change that was put in here is for distributors who have custom categories set up for the retailers. This now reflects the custom categories as opposed to the distributors' categories. Sometimes that makes more sense, especially to the retailer if you're on the phone with them. So that's one option, one thing off of our list. Number two, order entry allows the return of inactive and discontinued items even if they can't be ordered. That was a change that was added into the widescreen version of order entry. The traditional version already could do that, and I believe there is a system option that controls that behavior. Nothing to show there, just wanted to talk about that. Select orders for picking, invoicing, posting, F14 for a second line of information. Let's look at that. Over on billing, all of these functions here really are the same program, they just run in different modes. And so the change made to one of them is affecting all of them for this particular thing. So let's, for instance, look at select orders for picking, take option 4. And what you can do when we expand the secondary line on a lot of these displays, we like to use F2, but if the F2 function is already in use, then we do Shift F2, which is an F14, which typically is not in use. So if you press Shift F14, you will see some secondary information. So yeah, F14 is Shift F2. I think I just said that. But the additional line that appears, total dollar value for each order, the number of cigarette cartons, and the number of lines in there. So opposed to having to possibly drill down with the 5 to look at that order, you may have enough information right here on the main screen to make a decision. So that was that option. Work with allowances. The super items, you can now press F2 for secondary line for that and zoom to detail. So let's look at that. If I take option 20 to go to billing file maintenance, and I take option 4, work with selling allowances, and for something that has details inside of it, might be or any type of super item of that nature, an F2 for the second line shows how many line items are involved, and if there are quantities involved, what that total quantity is. And also from out here, without having to go through the parent item, you can also now use a Z to zoom into the detail and get some more information. It'll list out the items that are actually in it, quantities that may be involved in that super item kit. Do you charge for it? You know, the status of it, how many you have available in the warehouse, how many are on order. So just a little quick thumbnail of what's going on inside of the super item. Moving along, work with deals, the widescreen version. It includes F2 for a second line now, so let's look at that. So if I navigate back to the main menu and get over to work with deals, taking a couple options here. And when I press F2, it shows how many items are in the deal. Let's see if I press F7 here to show some expired deals, we may see a little bit more information on some of these. It does show like who is enrolled. This one is a global enrollment. It has 4 items in the deal. This one down here, customers enrolled 1, possibly that's a global enrollment. Oh no, that would be global over here. So it's just a single customer is enrolled, 5 items there. So essentially additional information with F2, continuing that set of changes we've been making to the system. Ranking criteria, added Salesman, Restrictor, and a CSV file. And what we're referring to here, if we go back to the main menu, take 6 for reports, 1 for customers, 2 for special customer reports. And that is not the right place. Actually, I'm trying to get to this spot here, which is later on in the presentation. So excuse me while I back up a little. And instead, to look at the customer ranking, we're going to go to the customer file, work with customers. You can do an S beside any customer. You get to the same spot. S to look at scoring. So the ranking is another type of scoring that we have added in the past year, and we've made some improvements to it. So if I press F18, you go to the ranking criteria, confirm, and then, so for those who don't remember the last quarterly presentation that we did, these are definitions and ways that you can rank, award basically a point system to customers and see how many points they get. It might be positive points for behavior that's beneficial to the distributor. It might be negative points if it's not so beneficial to the distributor. That's the overarching idea behind the ranking criteria. But this specific change, if I press F18 a second time and go in, and now what you can do is you can, when we say print the results, not only will it print something, but it will produce a CSV file with all the ranking information in there. And you will use whatever criteria you have at the top as selectors as filters for that CSV file. One addition that was in that particular thing that was published is the ability to restrict to a particular salesperson. And that ranking data looks like this. And so this is so here I ran it for multiple customers, might have been by salesman, might have been just all customers. You can run it that way too. And anything where they earn some type of point, be it positive or negative, it shows up, and then there's a total for each customer, their point situation. So that information is in there, and that file gets written into the folder under QDLS called CSV files, oddly enough. And that's where that will show up. Let me minimize that and put that away. So that's how you get to it. I'm going to jump out of here and go back to the menu. And so that was this option right here, 12,253, which was a unit of work for us. Prompt for authorization now supports customer collection. Let's look at that. So if I go to the billing system, the billing file maintenance, and then option 19 for billing file maintenance 2, and then option 4, and I believe that spot here, yes, customer collection. So here's the place to put a customer collection in there. And for those, if you are unfamiliar with customer collections, it's just a loose way to affiliate a number of customers. Customer can belong to as many collections as necessary. You can have as many collections as you need. And it's just a way to link customers together in a sort of an ad hoc fashion. If we go in and look at this one, just talking about collections, so there's some stores inside there. And essentially it would do the authorization things that you direct it to do for that collection, just like it does for the other criteria that you can enter. Let's go back. Global price change import now supports multiple warehouses and alternate pricing. That's 2 things here we're going to show at one time. So jump over to products, enter global price changes. And by the way, if you haven't adopted importing from a spreadsheet, some price change information is certainly something that is possible now, and a number of distributors are doing that actively. And when they started to do it, we got requests to do a couple of improvements. So from this screen, if I press F15 to import from a file, and what we're referring to is now in a multi-warehouse environment, you can specify the warehouse that you want to make the price changes for. And if you want to do all warehouses, you can enter, instead of a warehouse, you can enter star all. So that's what that option pertains to. And also the other change, adding an alternate price code for people who actually use alternate pricing to meet needs in particular states, things of that nature. Those two features were added in. ACH Export. So in ACH processing for AR, we're going to draft the bank. And it was pointed out to us that if you didn't have bank information for one of the customers in that batch, it would warn you, but it didn't make a hard stop. And just essentially nothing to show here other than the fact that when you go to export, if it finds a customer there that doesn't have bank information on to know what account to draft, then it stops and you have to go fix that before you can continue. Display customers for AR can now restrict to a salesperson. So let's look at that. Let's go to AR. This would be option number 3, AR inquired by customer. And there's the salesperson up there. So if I want to put, and you can have force search on it, but I'll just key a salesperson in that's in this system. So just limits that list of customers. Somebody suggested that and found it to be a desirable feature. Customer contracts, F14 for second line. So this is another one of those instances where the F2 was already in use, so we elected to use F14. Display second line. So let's look at customer contracts and see what that's all about when we press F14. So customer contracts, option 1 from billing file maintenance. F14, since F2 was already in use, and F14 once again is a shift F2. And that additional information that shows up. So here we're looking at a customer. This customer has 3 contracts in the system overall. One of them is a category-based contract, one is a sales class, one is a product class. This other customer down here, you can see they have 2 total contracts set up in the system. One of those is at item level, one at category level. So you get the idea, you get a feel for how that particular customer is structured from right here by pressing F14. If I go back to the menu, I think the next thing up is billing matrix contracts. We added counts for customers and contracts. So let's look at that. So that on this same menu, if you take option 2, and so billing matrix 100 in my example has 7 customers that are members of that matrix. And there are 11 contracts at a billing matrix level 100 set up in the system. So just some metrics to look at to give you a little bit more information when you're looking at that screen. Display billing and retail matrix screens added customer counts to those. So that's on file maintenance. So let's say 1119. So let's go back to the beginning, back to the menu, back to the start. 1119, and option 1 is the billing matrix. And what you can see here is that it just tells you how many customers. Very similar to the other thing we looked at on contracts, but this one at the whole matrix level. If you're looking at this, so if you see a matrix that maybe is empty, not in use, might be a good time to retire that or repurpose it. But just some information. And the same thing on the retail matrix, option 2 on here, same idea. And that takes us through the first page here. Now we'll jump on into a couple of these other things. Another page of things to look at. Customer pricing. We added a CSV file. That is placed in the folder CSV files, which is underneath the QDLS folder. So to get here, you can do a 6/1/2011. Let's do that. 6/1/2011. And now we're in that customer pricing. Now this part of the system was added So there's actually a database that can be updated. Essentially, you can do it on the fly right now if you want to. It does take a little time to run, but it can. The idea is to have it run as a scheduled job, which we have run overnight, and then it will render every customer's price for every item, and it will show their current price and their previous price. So you can see if there are changes in there. So here, current price, previous price, so there's been a change. We also show custom retail, current custom retail versus the last time it ran. So this is a way to detect price changes, retail changes. The price has the allowance and sales tax already figured in, included in it, but we do break those out. And we originally wrote this information, this set of files for API usage, and we are using it for that for several projects now, but it is available for you to use in the core system as you see fit. It is a file you can query if you need to, but we put the CSV information. So these restrictors at the top get passed into the report and or the CSV file that gets rendered, and that produces. So sometimes that's handy, and I do have an example of what that looks like, and that is this. So it would show for every item. So you can filter this thing down, and that's why the filters on the other screen do some things for you. But item description, so current price, previous price, current retail, previous retail, the same information you saw on screen, but in a digestible spreadsheet type of format. Okay. We added location counts to edit warehouse areas and pick regions. Let's look at that. That's all under the inventory system and warehouse management, and added a column out here just says, for these each individual pick region, how many locations how many slots are really inside of that pick region, and it's the same identical information by warehouse area. So that may help some warehouse people, managers, upper management look at things. It certainly helps us support wise when we get on your system to assist and do things. Work with Prebook orders. The widescreen version of it now just displays deal and deal utilization, and that looks like this. Let's do it the right way. Let's go remote orders, Prebook orders. Okay, and we like this better. This is what we're talking about. So now out here you can see if there's a deal involved, a deal number, and how its utilization instead of standard utilization or a trade show, whatever it may be. You can also do an X as a value in there, but you will see that out here without having to drill in and do some extra keystrokes. That's what that's all about. On the Velocity Report CSV file, we added the next category and description. So when you're sharing product movement with a retailer, and many times they view the world by NACS categories and descriptions, and they can break that spreadsheet down. It's on there, so it can be sorted, and some things can be done with that. The Tableau module, just mentioned that briefly. Salesforce.com, I believe they are. One of their products is Tableau, and we do have a module that you can purchase. This is not part of the core system, but I just want to throw a little ad in here to feed that, and it's basically about a dozen files worth of information that go out for Tableau to use in its unique way, if you're familiar with that. So that's a new offering that's been done since the last quarterly meeting. Work with customer item records, authorization, record counts, total number, and so forth. So let's look at some of that information that's put on now. And if I go jump through a couple of hoops here, 20 and then a 7, and I think that's a 2. Possibly I've been in the wrong spot. Let me read my directions again here. Customer item records. Oh, what's right here in my face? That's why I'm trying to make it harder than it really was. The total number of records. So authorization records, it's in a file that's called the customer item master, and that file gets a record created in it every time the customer purchases an item. The first time that record gets created, or if you're setting up authorization, a couple other things, those records get created. And basically what shows on here, the number of customer item master records associated with this store, ABC store, the ones that actually have authorization information in them, not just purchase. That, in other words, as a result of authorizations, not just because they purchased it. So that's could be a different number, as you see it is down here. So they have 194 records, but only 191 of them involve authorization. 3 of them involve some type of disabling authorization, and 2 of those records are just straight out exclusions. So those that are familiar with the way this part of the system works, these are just metrics for you to make some informed judgments by looking out there. Work with pre-book defaults added the number of items to screen. So let's just go there. I'll go back, go to remote orders, go to pre-books. This was pre-book defaults, right? Just pre-book defaults. Pardon me if I ramble a little bit. There's a lot of content here to show. And what you can see in here now is the number of items inside each of these pre-book defaults, which are basically master pre-books that you in turn spawn pre-book orders from. So this one has 11 different items inside of it, and it has been used to create 0 orders so far. But if I hit my page down, and I'll see that on this one, 8 orders have been created, and I believe this is an old feature here, but just to sort of let you know, if you do an O beside that line, if you want to know what orders, and it'll list out the actual pre-book orders that were built out of there. So that part's been in the system for a while, but the counts were not on the screen readily available. You can manually move a remote order to pre-books, and some people do that because they stage things in the remote order file, and they don't want, and maybe they're coming from an outside source, not internal, and they want to kind of monitor that. And what this option does is give you the ability, when you do an M beside an order in a remote order file, to actually input user codes to help you separate or distinguish those pre-book orders that get built out of that process. I won't show that. It's pretty straightforward. You put an M beside the order and work with remote orders. Work with customers wide. We added address lines to the F2 feature. So the F2 feature was already there, but somebody after our last presentation said, gee, it sure would be nice to see some address information. So when I come over here and press F2, now you get not just the line that we showed last presentation in the October quarter, but now you also see street and address information shows up in here too, so it is a help. And we had put this other information was there, phone number, sales year to date, invoices average, invoices year to date, and so forth. So some pretty good information there at a glance. That was this option down here. So work with POs, cancellation prompt once instead of on every PO. So essentially, I won't show this, but when you go to cancel a PO, you put a C beside it. And if you did, previous to this change, if you wanted to cancel 10 POs, you would have 10 different pop-ups saying, are you sure you want to cancel this? So you'd have to answer it 10 times. And now we have relaxed that. So when you, for instance, want to cancel 5 POs, it will ask you one time at the beginning, are you sure you want to continue? And then it will just remove all 5 without prompting each time. I'm going to press page down and go to another page. Future price changes. I don't have a CSV file to show in the presentation at this moment, but it will build a CSV file and a PDF file. There is an option on the screen that runs from 6-120 are the menu options. So the option to produce PDF CSV file, this tells you where they go, FP, and then 6 nines, and those nines would represent the actual customer number, a PDF file, and then a CSV version that they're placed in the DAC email folder. The commission, you can now calculate commissions, the commission report itself off of net profit as opposed to profitability based off of base cost. So that was the option that was added actually December the 16th. So very recent, or things in this quarter. An honorable mention here for something that's not in the core package, but DAC Connect now has a new user type where you can put an X in, and the X means they are excluded from creating an order, submitting an order. A customer suggested this possibility because they wanted to put DAC Connect in the hands of store merchandisers, but they didn't want them to inadvertently or send an order or play in that sandbox. So you can block that now. The virtual save, this is informational, just to let you know, and there is an option that we can put in place to, instead of saving to a physical tape, save to basically a save file, a zip file, if you want to think of it that way, on your system, and then that can be sent to the cloud. So you're doing your tape, instead of doing a physical tape back up and taking the tape off site, you can do a virtual save and it goes into the cloud, so it can be an unattended process, which is always a good thing. Drill down to PO and voucher from PO to AP links. So this was a feature that was requested by a new customer. And if I go, I think this was 11.1, no. It's over in where you do the PO to AP links. And I'm just gonna stop there because I've lost my notes that indicate actually how to get there. But when you get to the place where people that are familiar with it, PO to AP links, now there's an option to drill back to the PO and see information there, or drill into the AP voucher and see the things there right from that one screen. That was a change that was added. Additional columns were added to the future price change CSV file, and that happened the 7th of this month, so very new. And the request was to put category number, category description, sales class number, sales class description into the actual CSV file for a retailer that wants to sort the stuff down. They may not understand category number, but category description, sales class description probably make a lot of sense to them, and just help segregate for them and help them make sense of where those items fit in their product mix they have at their retail store. Another change that was added is when an order goes on hold, now we say why. So here, very small, you can see it though, under the status column and work with orders, there'll be information that shows you if it's on hold. Instead of just saying on hold, it's going to say hold over credit limit, hold a past due invoice, hold because it's a duplicate order or it contain a duplicate item. So that type of information was added. ACH emails can now be sent up to 4 email addresses. Before we supported 2, and now that has been increased to 4 different email addresses for the ACH notification. So to see that, let's go over here. Let's go to the email menu, and that is a specific document. So that's under 5, work with document distribution. And I happen to know that document ID, you can F4 search for it, but it's ACH NOT for ACH notification. And when you edit one of those, you'll see now there are 4 email address lines. So if you need to send corporate, maybe individual store, maybe a couple of copies internally, however you want to structure those for email addresses for ACH notification. It's always a good idea to have it copy back to somebody who's watching it there at the office in case it gets blocked by spam or something like that. Since it is email, it's good for you to know if there's an issue, especially in the outbound email, because sometimes you don't get a notification that it failed to send. Just, yeah, I passed it all, but it goes up to wherever your email service provider is, and if it gets blocked there, at least you have a copy, or if it goes there, you won't get your carbon copy of it either. So vendor name, search and alpha account inquiry to accounts payable was added on the 11th of January, so that's new, and that's in accounts payable. And that brings us basically to the end of our list. This recording was redone because we had a problem in the video that resulted from the presentation. So we decided it was worthwhile to just go back and recreate the presentation. So I tried to step through it in a fairly crisp fashion, and now you have it to share. So thank you so much for your attention. I hope everybody has a wonderful day and a very productive 2022. Thank you.